Pain. That was the first thing Elias felt. Not the cold. Not the shame. Just the searing heat of boiling soup, splashing against his frostbitten skin. A designer stiletto heel had just slammed onto the pavement, crushing the paper cup that held his only meal for the day. "Look at what you did. You filthy animal." The voice came from above. Victoria stood there, wrapped in an expensive fur coat, her face twisted in disgust. "You splashed my boots." Elias looked down, clutching his burned hand to his chest. He didn't dare make eye contact. His voice cracked as he whispered. I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just trying to eat." She pulled a handkerchief from her purse, wiped a speck of broth from her boot, and threw the soiled cloth directly into his face. "Don't speak to me," she spat. "You people are a stain on this city. Move. Now. Or I'll have security drag you away." Elias didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just gathered his heavy wool blanket, and crawled into the shadows. Elias wasn't always invisible. Once, he stood tall. Once, he had a name that people spoke with respect. But grief is a heavy coat. And Elias had been wearing it for a long time. He pulled out a small, laminated photograph. A young woman and a baby. He lost his job when the factory closed. He lost his home when the medical bills piled up. And he lost his soul, when the sickness took his wife anyway. Now, the streets were the only thing waiting for him. Across the alley, a stray dog was curled up on a grate, shaking violently from the wind. Elias looked at the dog. Then at his blanket. The only thing keeping him from freezing. Most men in his position would have become bitter. But Elias possessed something money could not buy. He stood up, his legs stiff with cold, and walked over to the shivering animal. "It's okay, buddy," he whispered. "You need this more than me." He draped the heavy blanket over the dog. He had given away his last comfort. From across the street, inside a black luxury sedan, an older man watched. His eyes were narrowed, focused intently on Elias. As the sun began to set, Victoria walked out of the building. She stopped dead in her tracks. "The trash is still here," she said into her phone. She marched over. "Are you deaf? I told you to leave. My husband is meeting me here any minute, and I will not have him see a beggar ruining my evening." Elias looked up. His lips were blue. "Please. I'm just resting. I have nowhere else to go." Victoria kicked the crate out from under him. He fell hard onto the pavement. She opened her purse, pulled out a $100 bill, and crumpled it up. She threw it into a puddle of dirty slush. "You want money? There. Crawl for it. Show me what you're really worth." Elias looked at the money soaking in the mud. It was food for a week. But he didn't move toward it. He looked up at Victoria, his eyes filled not with anger, but with pity. "Keep your money, ma'am. You need it to buy yourself a heart." Her face turned red with rage. She raised her hand to slap him. "You are nothing. You are." Slam. A car door shut loudly behind her. Victoria turned, smiling sweetly. "David." Thank goodness. But David, her husband, ignored her. He was staring at Elias on the ground. His face was pale as a ghost. "No. It can't be," he whispered. Victoria pointed a manicured finger. "David, get security. This man assaulted me. He's dangerous." Silence. The voice boomed like thunder. It wasn't David. It was General Marcus. The older man walked past Victoria, dropped his cane, and fell to his knees on the dirty concrete. He grabbed Elias's hand. "The burned one. He turned it over gently and saw a faded tattoo on the wrist. Semper Fi. Then, he looked at the dog tags hanging outside the rags. Sergeant Elias Vance, the general said, his voice trembling. 1st Battalion. Elias looked up, recognition flashing through his eyes. General. David ran over, dropping to his knees beside them. Elias? Is that really you? Victoria looked confused. David, do you know this beggar? David stood up slowly. He turned to his wife. His face wet with tears, but his eyes furious. This beggar carried me 3 miles on his back in Fallujah. I had shrapnel in my spine. I couldn't walk. Everyone else left. They thought I was dead. But he didn't leave. He took bullets for me, Victoria. He gave me his water when I was dying of thirst. He is the only reason I am standing here. The only reason I am your husband. Victoria's hand covered her mouth. She looked at the burn on Elias's hand. The injury she had caused. General Marcus spoke softly. We looked for you, son. For 10 years. We never stopped looking. I didn't want to be a burden, sir. Elias whispered. I couldn't be a hero anymore. You never stopped being a hero, Elias, the general said. I watched you give your blanket to that dog. I watched you take abuse with dignity. You are the finest man I have ever known. Victoria stepped forward, trembling. I didn't know. David looked at the crumpled bill in the mud. Then at his wife. You thought he was nothing. That's the problem, Victoria. You don't need to know a man's rank, to treat him like a human being. Driver. Bring the car around. We're going home. David? Victoria cried. Where are you going? I'm eating with my brother. David said. You can take a taxi. And Victoria? Don't be there when we get home. Elias was never cold again. He moved into the guest house on the general's estate. But he didn't retire. With David's help, they started a foundation to find lost heroes living on the streets. Victoria learned a hard lesson that day. She judged a book by its cover. And she missed the greatest story ever told.